Okun's law is a fundamental concept in macroeconomics that describes the empirical relationship between changes in a country's unemployment rate and its economic output, gross domestic product or GDP. Named after economist Arthur Okun, who first proposed the relationship in 1962, it is a key tool for policymakers and economists to understand the link between the labor market and economic growth. The core concept, at its heart, Okun's law states that there is a negative relationship between the unemployment rate and the real GDP. Simply put, when the unemployment rate falls, the economy's output, GDP, increases and vice versa. This makes intuitive sense. As more people are employed, they produce more goods and services, leading to higher economic output. However, the relationship is not one-to-one. The law is more of a rule of thumb or an observed empirical regularity rather than a strict economic law based on first principles. The relationship varies across different countries and time periods due to factors like changes in productivity, labor force participation, and working hours. The two versions of Okun's law. Okun's law is typically expressed in two main forms, the gap version and the difference version. 1. The gap version. This version relates the percentage difference between an economy's actual output and its potential output to the cyclical component of the unemployment rate. Potential output is the maximum sustainable level of output that an economy can produce without generating upward pressure on inflation. The formula for the gap version is frac y to the power of y to the power of equals minus c, u to the power of asterisk, where y is the actual real GDP, y to the power of is the potential GDP dot u is the actual unemployment rate, u to the power of is the natural rate of unemployment, the unemployment rate that prevails when the economy is at its potential, also known as the non-accelerating inflation rate of unemployment, or NIRU. C is the Okun's coefficient, which is a positive number. The term u to the power of asterisk is the unemployment gap, and the term frac y to the power of y to the power of is the output gap. The formula shows that for every 1 percentage point increase in the unemployment gap, actual unemployment above its natural rate, the output gap widens BYC percentage points. The value of FC is typically estimated to be around 2 to 3 for the US economy, but it can vary. A value of C equals 2 implies that if the unemployment rate is 1 percentage point above its natural rate, the real GDP will be 2% below its potential. 2. The difference version. This version of the law relates the change in the unemployment rate to the change in real GDP growth. It's more commonly used for short-term forecasting and analysis. The formula for the difference version is delta U equals minus text actual GDP growth minus text trend GDP growth. Or more formally, delta U underscore T equals minus beta delta Y underscore TG plus epsilon underscore T, where delta U underscore T is the change in the unemployment rate from one period to the next. Delta Y underscore T is the percentage change in real GDP of GDP growth rate. G is the trend or average rate of GDP growth rate. Beta is the Okun's coefficient, which is a positive number. Epsilon underscore T is an error term. A common rule of thumb for the US is that a 1 percentage point drop in unemployment is associated with a 2 percentage point increase in real GDP growth above its trend rate. This implies that the Okun's coefficient beta is approximately 0.5. The term beta G is also important. It represents the jobless growth rate of GDP, the growth rate needed just to keep unemployment stable. Why the relationship isn't one-to-one? The negative correlation is not a perfect 1:1 relationship for several reasons. Changes in working hours. When a firm needs to increase production, it can first ask existing employees to work more hours overtime rather than immediately hiring new workers. This means output can increase without a corresponding drop in the unemployment rate. Labor force participation. As the economy improves, some people who had previously given up looking for a job, discouraged workers, may re-enter the labor force. They are now counted as unemployed, which can temporarily dampen the decline in the official unemployment rate, even as output and employment are growing. Labor productivity. A firm can increase its output by making its existing workforce more productive, e.g., through new technology, better management. This means GDP can grow without a significant change in the number of employed people. Applications and limitations. Applications. Forecasting. Economists use Okun's law to forecast changes in the unemployment rate based on projected GDP growth. Policy analysis. Policymakers, such as central banks, use it to gauge how much of a reduction in the unemployment rate they can expect from their policy actions that stimulate economic growth. Gauging economic slack. The law helps to quantify the amount of economic slack, unused productive capacity in the economy. A large negative output gap suggests that the economy is performing well below its potential. Limitations. Instability. Okun's law is an empirical relationship, not a theoretical one. The Okun's coefficient, C or beta, is not constant and has been observed to change over time and across countries. This makes it a rule of thumb rather than a precise forecasting tool. Varying coefficients. The relationship can change due to shifts in the economy's structure, such as changes in the composition of the labor force, the average work week, or the rate of technological progress. Does not imply causality. The law describes a correlation, not a strict causal relationship. While it's generally true that higher output leads to lower unemployment, other factors are at play. In summary, Okun's law is a simple yet powerful tool that highlights a key macroeconomic relationship. While its precise application requires careful consideration of its limitations and the changing nature of the economy, it remains an indispensable concept for understanding the connection between economic growth and the well-being of the labor force.